Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We are studying japasadhana and we have seen two purposes. First, we saw that how our vision undergoes change when we keep on chanting the Lord's name, and thereby we are reminded of the Lord, some higher possibility in our life. Thereafter, the second aspect we thought was how this japa sadhana takes us from the manifest sound to the unmanifest silence. And thereby we transcend both the sound and the silence, the relative experience. Then we saw the third thing about how this japa sadhana is used for controlling the mind. Yesterday we saw how we are chanting the Lord's name and no dissimilar thought is allowed to intercept in between. And if we are able to do it for, let us say, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times, that means for that much period of time, our mind is controlled. So when we chant this mantra, the purpose is that we are able to acquire control over our mind. So when we start, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. If this chanting is not disturbed by any dissimilar thought in between, then our mind is becoming like a mirror. In front of the mirror, object 1 comes. That object 1 is reflected by the mirror as a reflection. Then that object goes. Then again there is a total absence of reflection. But the potentiality to reflect another object is untouched. Then the second object comes. Second object is reflected. That goes away. So between these two objects coming and going, in between the gap, there was nothing that was disturbing the mirror. Japa sadhana is converting our mind from the photo film to the mirror. In case of a photo film, when an object comes in front of the film, there is an impression on the film. But in case of the mirror, there also the object is reflected like in the photo film. but there is no impression created on the mirror surface. So when our mind is able to be like the mirror, we start remaining in the present. When we look at the photos or a photo film, that gives us the memory. Because photos are always of the past. But when you stand before a mirror after 10 years, in that mirror, you don't see the memory, you see the present. Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna. So all that we are trying through the japasadhana is undoing our earlier habits of gathering impressions with every interaction. If you remember in our meditation class, after the meditation is over, I emphasize this point sufficiently. Do not make a memory of the experience. If you make a memory of your meditation, you are only at the level of the mind. We have to transcend that. And if the memory is made, our next meditation will be with reference to the earlier meditation. And what we will say? Today's meditation was not good. That day's meditation was good. And thereby, you are lost in time. We have to transcend the time. Therefore, when we are chanting the Lord's name, this is the goal. Om Namah Shivaya. The mantra started from silence. It goes back to the silence. In this silence, there are no impressions. But in the mind, impressions are formed. So when impressions are formed, consciousness is reduced to mind. And when impressions are not formed, the mind reverts back to consciousness. And therefore, now I will chant, you please do not repeat. You experience that how when one Om Namah Shivaya is chanted, you hear it. That hearing is taking place in the mind. Then I will leave a gap. The silence cannot be heard by the ears. Ears can hear only the sounds. But we do hear the silence. So when we are hearing the silence, where are we? Definitely not in the ears, but behind the ears. And behind the ears is the mind. Now this mind had earlier experience or the thought of the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, and after the mind was dissociated from the ear because there is no sound. When sound is not, mind does not identify with the ears. But this mind had earlier impression of the sound, and therefore absence of sound is recognized by the mind in comparison to the earlier sound. Like the binary language of the computers. Presence and absence. So sounds presence in the form of the memory, opposite sounds absence. But there is yet another entity which eliminates both sounds and the silence, and therefore not opposed to anything, either sound or silence. Sound silence is at the level of mind. When we experience as consciousness, sounds do not disturb, silence do not relieve. So this japa, when I am doing, this explanation which I gave, try to recognize how this is happening. Again I tell you in short, when I say Om Namah Shivaya, your mind is identified with the ears. When there is silence, you are in the mind. But when both sound and silence do not create any impression on the mind. Like the mirror, consciousness is reached. So now do this. Clear understanding about sound, silence, and beyond. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. With every mantra, we are in the ear. With every silence, we are in the mind. Silence and sound, they are mutually exclusive. Meaning, when there is sound, there is no silence. When there is silence, there is no sound. This silence and sound is a game of relative existence at the level of mind. But a pure consciousness, mirror-like, neither holds on to the silence nor to the sound. Illuminates both. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. In fact, when we are not chanting Om Namah Shivaya, we may not be getting this sound to hear. But even in the silence, we keep on listening to very subtle sounds of the insects, and the more subtle we become, very minute sounds are heard. And when we are indifferent even to these minute sounds, we transcend both sound and silence. So initially we chant the Lord's name 1, 2 or 3 times, followed by a short gap, and become aware of this phenomenon. Then consciously increase the gap between two chantings. Like Om Namah Shivaya. 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 So first it is the thought of sound, then it is thought of silence, and both of them are thoughts. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. In all experiences of opposite nature, like sound silence, joy sorrows, gain loss, we are still at the mind level. And these opposites leave impressions on the mind. But when these opposites do not leave impressions on the mind, then that mind is consciousness. First, it was the thought of sound. Then it is a thought of silence. Ultimately, no thought. Waking and dream are like thought of the sounds. Deep sleep is like thought of the silence. Therefore, waking, dream, deep sleep, samadhi, all are at thought level. The absolute is beyond. These four thoughts, waking, dream, etc., they come and go. But absolute consciousness is ever present. Therefore, we cannot even call it as present because it is never absent. So how can we call it as present? It is beyond existence, non-existence. Therefore, in this japasadhana, we first try to achieve control over the mind by chanting the name for more number of times without any dissimilar thoughts coming in between. Then in the second stage, we try to increase the gap between two chantings. Third, we recognize that as much sound is a thought, silence is also a thought. The truth is beyond them. And hence, these opposites do not touch the Absolute. Please repeat the japa after me. I'll chant for 11 times and we conclude. Om Namah Shivaya.
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 So when you are sitting quiet in a place and you have become extremely contemplative because of study, reading, that time this extremely awareful japa chanting is done to recognize the truth. When we are lot of activity oriented, that time keep on chanting one mala, two mala and so on. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.